Hello? Hello? Is this thing on? I hope you can all hear me. Yeah, I just presented this little device just yesterday and I wanted to try it out. Man, this thing is neat. Oh, sorry. Where are my manners? My name is Ronald Reagan, and I am the 40th President of the United States. I just started to read Founding Brothers, a book about the Founding Fathers of our country. I just finished the first chapter, The Duel, today. Very interesting chapter, and the way the author presents the scene reminds me of my acting days. Oh, those were the days. But I digress. My first reaction was,
Oh, gosh. Oh.
Hamilton! Oh no, Hamilton, are you alright?
the most important thing I learned from this chapter is that your reputation affects how people treat you, talk to you, and how people look at you in general. Clearly, Mr. Burr's reputation received a heavy blow after he supposedly murdered Mr. Hamilton. My reputation was also dealt a crippling blow in the Iran-Contra affair. It's pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. It was actually deemed a political scandal, and my popularity went 67% to 46% less in a week. Talk about hate, people. Anyways, I think the most important lesson I learned from this is to keep a good reputation. I could have prevented this accident by simply not providing funds to the Contras. Now that I think about it, that was a really dumb move on my part. Ugh. Well, it's been a long day, so it's off to bed for me. Good night to all my fellow Americans who decided to tune in tonight. Good evening, my fellow Americans. What a beautiful day it was today. But alas, I'm an old man needing my rest. So I decided to read chapter 2 today, because clearly I have nothing better to do. No, just kidding. I'm a funny person. Well, chapter 2 was about the famous dinner between Jefferson, Madison, and Hamilton in order to discuss, like gentlemen, their economic policy for the new country. I am a very visual person, so this is what it looked like in my mind. Every president has an economic policy, and each president looked at the economy differently. These three men also saw differently on how to run the country, and I don't blame them. An independent country recently freed from a powerful regime? Yeah, I would be a little bossy too if I were put in charge of running this country. However, looking back on my own economic policy, I realized that the things I may have saw fit for the economy at the time may not have been what was right for the economy at the time. My idea of supply-side economics, or later put in terms by people, Reaganomics, seemed like it could pull America from the debt we were in at the time. However, in my 8-year tenure, tax cuts combined with military spending raised the annual deficits to $200 billion. Yikes! I also added nearly $2 trillion to the national debt. Goodness gracious, Reagan. Hamilton looked like he knew what he was doing, though. The man was appointed by Washington to take on the challenge of the country's economic policy as Treasury Secretary. I should have read more about him. Maybe this economy would be a little better. Oh goodness, is it 9 p.m. already? It's past my bedtime. Well, thanks for tuning in tonight, my fellow Americans. Till tomorrow, this is President Ronald Reagan, signing out. Today was an eventful day. I guess you could say that. As I was going for my daily jog at 6 p.m. sharp, because as you all know, I'm a very prompt person, I saw a white male picking on a homeless Hispanic. Seeing this sight, I went over to the white man and told him that there was no place in this country for this sort of treatment. Immediately recognizing me, he deeply apologized and left. I felt proud of myself, and decided to go home, make myself a cup of coffee, and sit down in front of the fireplace to read the next chapter in Founding Brothers. What a coincidence that I would read this chapter today. Slavery. As the word flows through my mind, this is the picture I get.
What are you doing? Get back to work!
Can I please
Have some water. Drink it. Get back to work. Can I at least have a bigger spoon?
At first, after reading the chapter, I was astonished our founding fathers allowed this horrible thing to exist in our country up until the Civil War, which was not until 1865. Our country was founded on the basis that everyone, and I mean everyone, was entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But then I realized I didn't do anything for civil rights within our country. Sure, my predecessors did do a lot to help, and I'm very gracious for that. But clearly, discrimination is still around. I realized that I spent so much of my time in presidency trying to help the economy by cutting taxes in hopes of increased government spending. And what did that do for us? Made us worse. And the idea of discrimination against ethnic groups still exists today. If I could relive my presidency, I would have done more to fight against discrimination. I truly believe this country can overturn its economic woes by seeing eye to eye with different groups of people. I love the title of this chapter, The Silence. The Founding Father achieved silence on this issue, and I believe in our age we have too. Okay, enough talk from me. I must go get more coffee. Thank you for tuning in tonight, America. I will see you tomorrow. This is President Ronald Reagan, signing out. Let me ask you a question, America. How awesome is it to think that we had a man like George Washington once leading our country and guiding us through thick and thin? The man was a legend. No argument. And just talking about it makes me feel super excited. From being at the forefront of the Revolutionary War to the building of our new country, Washington did what no man could have achieved. Even the country's new capital consisted of his name. I wish there was a city named after me. As you all know, I'm a pretty visual person, but for George Washington, I can't even conjure up an accurate description of him in my head. For he was that great of a man, then I can only think of this.
Legend? Wait for it. Dairy! Legendary!
And then he was gone, stepping down from the position of President of the United States. Now, you have to admit, that was pretty shattering. You know, you're reading about this great man and he just stops running the country. But reading it once through again, I realized that he did it for the good of the country. Wait, hold on. You're probably wondering, Mr. President, how was this in any way for the good of the country? Well, Washington saw further. Sure, at the time he was literally revered like a god in the newly formed country, but he saw that his reign was becoming exactly what the people of this country fought to be released from. One without a monarch. Washington saw that his regime was becoming one, and while his reputation was still strong, he wanted to step down and show that every president could be replaced. He did what was right for the country, and every president can learn from him. That's what made this man great. Not only was he at the forefront of our national independence, he did what was right for the country and for the people at the time. Oh, jeez. Oh, my laptop. Oh man, this isn't good. Well, I guess where we stop for today. I guess we'll see you tomorrow. Farewell, my fellow Americans. And this is President Ronald Reagan, signing out. Greetings, my fellow Americans. Let me tell you something, it sure feels good to be old. Just to get to sit at home the whole day in my recliner and eat, sleep, do whatever I want. Kids, it's not good to sit at home the whole day, but as old people, we have an excuse. And after 8 years of ruling this country, I think I deserve it. Anyways, so I read chapter 5 today. By the way, it'd be very nice if someone could tell me if there's anything wrong with my portable device after yesterday's fiasco. Anyways, where was I? Oh yes, I was talking about George Washington yesterday. Now after hearing me boast about him, the natural response would be, Mr. President, who could replace Washington as president? Good question, because that was exactly what the people at the time thought. Thus began the presidential elections of today, in which two parties chose one nominee and the people would elect their president. The two rivals for this week,
Mr. John Adams and Mr. Thomas Jefferson.
oh, my announcer days are coming back. The irony of this presidential election is that these two men were great friends, literally like brothers. They served together, they trusted one another, and most importantly, they loved one another. Seeing them get torn apart because of politics seems so silly, so frustrating. However, I soon realized that their friendship was torn apart because they had totally different ideals and beliefs on how the country should be run. Both had their own ideas on what was best for the country, and the other disagreed. And thinking back on my own presidency, I did everything I thought was best for the country. And besides, our national debt increasing, I wouldn't have made it any different. Our country was founded on the basis of freedom for all, that people should not be made to submit to other people's will. And I strongly believe that ideal, which is why I gave much support to our underfunded military, so that they may free the oppressed from the oppressor around the world. Okay, I've done too much talking for today, my throat's starting to hurt. This is President Reagan saying, "Good night, America, I will see you all tomorrow." Greetings, my fellow Americans. Day 6 and the end of Founding Brothers. This chapter felt like I was reading some fantasy book, but I'll get to that later. What hit me the most was that the rift between Jefferson and Adams was not healed for a long time due to differences in political ideologies, as you all know. However, it also didn't heal because Adams believed that he was cheated out of all the glory he should have received, particularly on the Declaration of Independence. He believed that he was the one who came up with the idea, and Jefferson received all the glory because of his penmanship. My first reaction was,
Good evening, John. How dare you?
wow, Adams is not looking very mature right now. But I also learned a very valuable lesson, that we should not dwell on our miseries and our failures. Those shouldn't be a stumbling block to us. I learned that I should get over the fact that I failed at certain points in my presidency, particularly my idea of supply-side economics, or the fact that my popularity dropped from 67 to 46% in less than a week. We all make mistakes. It's the way we pick ourselves up afterwards. Well, it looks like our journey has come to an end, America. It was fun reading Founding Brothers with you. Till next week, I am President Reagan, and have a wonderful weekend.